Hey, my name is Andy and welcome to the Andy's Auto YouTube channel. Welcome back to part 2 of the bringing this old scooter back to life, where today we're going to be replacing the original key set and putting in a new key set because we did not have a key. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of all the locks and the ignition lock cylinder so that we can hopefully start this thing. Let's get it. But first, you know the drill. Please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Now let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, we got some more parts here and some coffee, of course. It's nearly 10 p.m. right now. Then maybe the night owl in me will never go away. But we're down here. I think it makes the most sense to start out with the most important part and then work our way down to the least important. So this is the actual lock cylinder that will enable you to start the scooter, as well as lock your steering column or your handlebars, whatever you want to call it. Whenever you turn this to the lock position, this pin by my thumb will actually come out and it will go into the steering column and it will lock it so that you can't turn it, and therefore in theory it cannot be stolen. So I believe that it's just held on by two 8mm bolts and it has an electrical connector. We're probably going to have to twist this off in order to put it on, and then once we get to the point of finalizing the install, then we can put that back on. So let's go ahead and get started by removing some of the body panels. Alright, so we got the scooter pulled over here. I guess I should show you this first. So this is obviously the piece that we're going to be replacing, and you can kind of twist this piece on and off. I got it twisted, I just got to kind of pull it out here. So that's that kind of goes on last. So in order to gain access to that, what we're going to need to do is pull this whole front panel off. I don't believe any of these screws need to come out. I believe that it is just a series of Phillips screws going through here. There's a couple right there, and there may be a couple more somewhere else down in here somewhere. I've done this before. One of my buddies, Steve, who's been on the channel before, you guys may have seen him, he used to have this exact scooter, and I'm pretty positive that we pulled the front end off of it at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and get started taking stuff off, and I'll let you know where the screws were as I go. Also, this is the only scooter that I've ever seen anyway that has these little wind guards for your hand, which at first I thought it was kind of cool, to be honest with you, but after realizing how close they are to your fingers, I feel like that could potentially be a safety issue where you're not able to actually grab it as you need to, because this might kind of block your hand there. If they were farther out, then I would definitely be down to keep them, but I've kind of discussed that with my mom, and she agrees that she would like to have them removed. So there are a couple of Phillips screws holding each one of these on, and while I got the Phillips screwdriver out, I'm just going to go ahead and remove those as well. Alright, and there it is. So I've figured it out. You basically have to push this little piece inwards like that, and this will just literally slide off the bottom edge there, and it also kind of clips onto these two pieces as well. You just kind of push it back and you can pull that off. And then it was just these two screws here on the back, or on the front, that I showed you. There's one on both sides. There was one right in the middle, which was right here. It took me a second to figure it out, so I ended up taking these screws out just in case, but that was a mistake because there's actually a nut on each one on the other side. You can see those two, but the other two are kind of buried in there under the headlight. So anyways, what you end up having to do, it's got these slots here, and so once you get the screws out, you grab it and pull down, and then it'll pull right off. Those hooks on this thing are pretty stout. Some things stick up pretty good. Yeah, there's another one. I may or may not have broken this one. I genuinely don't know if it was broken before or if I did that. But either way, this thing will go back on no problem. So now we have the lock cylinder opened up, or accessible I should say. So we're going to go ahead and follow the wiring. Looks like it goes right here. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug it if I can. I may need to use two hands. Give me a sec. Alright, so went ahead and just cut the zip tie there, unplugged this, and to be completely honest with you, not even sure why there was a zip tie there. I may or may not put that one back. On the other one back there that I replaced in the last video, that is kind of necessary, because otherwise your wires will just be hanging down here, and that could be bad next to the exhaust and a rotating wheel. But up here, I don't think the zip ties are as important, and sometimes I actually think they can be a detriment up here, especially in this area where you're turning, because it can actually cause wires to pull loose and cause all kinds of issues. If a wire is loose in one of these connectors, it can be extremely difficult to diagnose that issue. So anyway, we got access to this now. I'm sorry about the lighting, guys. My phone's only on like 11% right now. I'm trying to get all of this on there for you. But I was wrong about the bolt size. It looks like they're actually 10 millimeter. There's one right here, and then there's another one a little farther back, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those now. Alright guys, I moved this light over here so you can see a little bit better. Using a 10 millimeter shallow socket and a 3-inch extension, I was able to get at both of those bolts. So now I should be able to loosen them out by hand, and yeah, you can already tell this guy's ready to come out, and then we'll take it over there and we'll compare it with the new one. Okay, so we've got our old part here on the left and the new one here on the right, and although they do look slightly different right here, they are pretty much the same. The connector has 4 pins on the old one. This new one also has 4 pins. Seems to be the same connector. So I do believe that I got the correct part. Check this side. Yeah, they got guide or alignment pins all in the same spot. So we should be able to go ahead and install this one. I just want to point out too, this large hole right there in between the two smaller holes, that's where that pin goes through on the ignition to lock the steering. And then you can see this little piece right here. It's kind of a square piece. If I turn it, you can see that it doesn't go all the way around. It only has a little section. And basically, the pin goes behind it, and it stops it from turning back this way because the pin is stopping it from moving. So it's just a little piece there that's welded onto the frame, or the fork, I guess, and that's how that mechanism works. So now we got it installed. Both bolts in, tightened up. You don't want to go too tight on those, but you do want them to be nice and snug. If you go too much, you can break them off in there, and that's going to be a major issue. So do be careful not to over tighten them. And thankfully it's relatively centered in that hole, so we can go ahead and put our cap back on and plug it in. So on these caps here, the original's on the right, the new one's on the left, I noticed something kind of interesting. And it says that this new one has an extra position for just turning your parking lights on, I guess. So I went ahead and turned the key and attempted to put it in that position, but the cylinder does not even have that position. So that's kind of interesting that they would put that on there when it doesn't even have that. However, since it doesn't have that, and since this one has larger letters and it actually says on off instead of giving the symbols for it, I will be using the original one because you can see it better and it's a little more user friendly and obvious which one is on and which one is off. Scratch what I just said. I don't have a choice but to use this one because the way that it's set up, if I put this one on, the only way that it'll actually go in and twist on is if it's upside down. So we have no choice but to use this one. Also, I was able to get the glove box open so we can get that taken care of, and also went ahead and removed those wind guards for safety as we discussed earlier. So on this, there's literally just a little C-clip that pulls out, and this should push right through the hole. Right, we got that clip pulled out. We got the new one put in place. No biggie at all. Now we just have one more. Alright, here we are a couple days later. You already know we got the coffee yet again. Nighttime repairs. Also, for those that care, we got a gasket set and a timing set for the Lincoln, so we'll be getting that together here pretty soon. Anyway, I'm going to take this bracket off here, and then we're going to have to get access to this, and we're probably going to have to take this body off, which I believe is a series of screws kind of all down this way. And there's probably a couple more on this plastic piece, but I'll show you guys step by step as I get it taken apart. Alright guys, sorry to disappoint you, but we actually did not have to remove this at all. I was able to basically just take the bracket off, simple 3 bolts, no problem, which by the way, this bad boy is light. Looks way heavier than it actually is. So anyway, all I had to do was lift it up, and it'll be kind of hard for you guys to see. I'll try to shine the light in there, but basically there is a clip that holds it in. You can kind of see it right there just above the spring. It sticks down. So if you pull that clip out, then the whole assembly pretty much just pulls out. There is a square washer between the clip and the plastic. I did have to shave that down a bit with the bench grinder in order to get it to fit properly. And then I also had to double gasket the cylinder here underneath because it was a little wobbly, and it's still a little bit wobbly, but with everything bolted down I think it'll be pretty sturdy, and it does lock and unlock with the latch here, so we should be good to go on that. I believe temporarily I'm going to go ahead and leave the seat out because I did try to crank the engine over with the new carb and new fuel lines and everything, and it still wouldn't start. So we're probably going to have to pull the valve cover off and check the valve clearance just to make sure that everything's good to go on that, and also check the spark, and if necessary we'll do a compression test on it. But with the odometer looking like that, I can't imagine there's a compression issue, but I do know that from the factory the valve adjustment can sometimes, you know, get out of position a little bit, so it's definitely something that needs to be checked pretty regularly on these. So point is, we're leaving the seat out. I do need to go ahead and put the front nose panel back on, but besides that we will pretty much be all finished up. Alright guys, we got the back bracket back on, and we got the front nose panel back on in place with the 2 screws, one on each side, and then there was one in the center, and then this piece just kind of clipped back on from the back side. And I just kind of set the seat in there for now because I'm trying to pick up my basement a little bit, but that's where we're at, and we finally have all 3 keys installed, or all 3 locks rather. Alright guys, and that's going to be the end of the video for today. Stay tuned for part 3 where we're going to be doing both oil changes as well as checking out the transmission. Going to go ahead and change the belt out as well. And then we're going to go ahead and try to start it and see what else we need to do. I'm probably going to have to check the valves on it, but otherwise, say hi. I'm probably going to have to check the valves on it and see if it's got the correct valve clearance, but stay tuned for that. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.
Like the video.